let's face it, it's really all about the egg. Some of you are here for my icebreaker speech. And for those of you that weren't, I sent a link out last night so you could take a look at it and review it. And for those that didn't review it, I'm going to give you just a little bit of review. At that time, in 2012, so you can see now what 4 years in this room can do. Same hand movements. Okay. 4 years ago, it was all about the chickens, right? I went to Tasmania, I found out I could do really cool chickens. I came home, I built a chicken coop, I started raising chickens, loved the chickens. I had a beautiful rooster. Now I have the specialty chickens, the Buff Orpingtons. Lovely rooster, lovely hens, eating my flowers. And then there's the building of the chicken coop and making sure they're happy and healthy. And then you have to take care of them when they're sick. Notice the blow dryer. But really, it's all about the egg. You keep chickens so you can get eggs. Eggs are incredible. They're delicious. They're nutritious. They're fantastic. And there's some really interesting science in cooking an egg. What is an egg? What happens when you're cooking an egg? Well, let's see. Egg proteins, when they're floating an egg in the water of the egg, are all bound up. They have hydrophilic molecules on the outside and hydrophobic molecules on the inside. And that's what you have here. So inside the egg, they're all folded up. They go through a denaturing process when you mix them or heat them. Because they have fairly weak bonds, they dissociate, and then they reaggregate. And you get like with like. So they reaggregate so that the hydrophilic meets the hydrophilic and the hydrophobic meets the hydrophobic. That creates a network or an open structure that provides structure to the egg as it cooks or as you beat it. So we'll talk about 3 things today. We'll talk about heating, mixing, beating. Where's my, awesome, too many props. Okay. So, the first thing with eggs you often do is scrambled eggs. This is applying heat, typically, but there's some mixing involved. Now, which egg would you like to eat? Would you like to eat this really undercooked, rubbery egg? Or this overcooked, tough egg? Or what about this beautiful, fluffy egg? This is pretty nice. So how do you get the beautiful, fluffy egg? You have a couple of choices when you go into the drawer to grab your implement to cook with, right? You have a fork you can mix with, or you have the whisk that you can beat with. And I think most people say, use the whisk, right? You whisk eggs when you scramble them. You tend to over-denature when you do that. You always want to use a fork when you're making scrambled eggs. You want to gently tease apart those bonds so that this is a little bit too little, and this is a little too much, and a little too much heat, and a little too little also goes with it. But this right here, you can see that fluff factor. Big structure, wide structure, so partially denatured and then brought back together with the heat. Using the whisk, you get something different. Using the whisk, what do you do with the whisk? You have a lot of energy in it, but look at the shape of this. What do you see in between these prongs? Air, exactly. There's a lot of air, so when you use this to mix up your eggs, you're putting air into your eggs. You're denaturing those proteins and you're adding air into them. And so what that happens is you get a bigger matrix. And you can really see that in here, and we can see it in here, that you're creating this larger matrix and whipping it up and putting a lot of air into it. And that gives you your egg whites. Now, there's something else that you can do with eggs that is pretty amazing. Eggs act as an emulsifier. So when you're mixing an egg, well, oil and water, right? So we all know oil and water don't mix. You've seen it on the top, the oil is floating here, the water's below. You can shake it up all you want, but you put it back on the table, within a couple of minutes, they're separated out again, and you've got oil and water. But when we cook, some of the key ingredients when we cook are oil and water, and we want them to stay together. So here we've got some hollandaise sauce, which goes on a lot of different things, and some mayonnaise, which goes on a lot of sandwiches that we like. So how does that work? What's happening, chemically? So again, we have our egg protein, we have our hydrophilic side and a hydrophobic side, and I think I have, yeah, there we go. The head, water-loving head, water-hating tail. So what happens here? The water-loving head binds with the water. The water-hating tail binds with the oil. And it holds the two together. So you mix oil and water and egg, primarily the egg yolk, and that allows you to hold together the oil and the water in this mix, which will create mayonnaise or hollandaise sauce or anything that needs an emulsifier to hold the oil and water together. It's really quite remarkable. And what are some of your egg stories? I'd like to hear from others about their egg stories. What is your biggest disaster that you've done with an egg? Anybody have anything they'd like to share, Lauren?
Mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise.
I've gotten it down now, but it is not emulsified many times.
And what was the trick?
Actually, adding a teaspoon of water.
There you go. A little bit more water. Got it. And I saw somebody else's hand go up. Yes, Hussein.
My wife was preparing a cake for a meeting as an important day. I didn't know that if you would like to make a better cake, you should put a normal room temperature your eggs. She put on the chair and I sit on the eggs.
That's a fantastic story. Excellent. Do we anybody else have any egg stories they'd like to share, Don?
So I'd like to know how to boil an egg properly. Because what you can do is so my unboiled egg I spun, and you know it's boiled when you can spin it like a top.
A soft-boiled egg or a hard-boiled egg?
Hard-boiled egg.
Well, here's a hard-boiled egg I boiled this morning.
So you can spin it like a top, and then we'll spin it like a top.
Oh, I didn't know that. Let's try it. I think it does. One other interesting fact about eggs. Do you know how to tell if an egg is fresh or not?
Put it in water?
You put it in water and float, and what happens? If it floats like this, it's a fresh egg. If it actually floats up off the bottom, then it's spoiled and you should throw it away. Why is that? It's because when the egg is formed, it has a small pocket of air inside of it. And that air will start to expand as it gets older and older. If it's floating upright and sitting on the bottom, still totally fine to eat. But if it's lifted off the bottom, that's one you want to get rid of. The amazing science of the egg. Any other stories that you'd like to share? Yes, Kyle.
You may not know this, but I visited Monique's house once. I mentioned that I had never had a fresh egg straight from the chicken. So amazingly, I went home with a couple of eggs, and they were indeed delicious beyond belief. That's my big story.
That's excellent. Yes, John.
I am half Filipino. My dad was born and raised in the Philippines, and my mom is born and raised in upstate New York. And my dad had been in the country for a very, very long time before I was born, so he's very, very Americanized by now. Doesn't really keep too much in the way of old country traditions. But my aunts, his sisters, are very, very much the opposite. My dad calls them the Filipino Golden Girls. And when we go back to their house sometimes when I was a kid for family gatherings, there's what I thought was a bunch of hard-boiled eggs ready to, just there as part of the buffet, soon to be deviled, who knows. And I realized on cracking one of them that they were not hard-boiled eggs. There's a Filipino delicacy, and a delicacy is a fancy word for something that when people were so hungry once upon a time they would eat it, and now that we're in happy America, there's plenty of food. It's a delicacy now. And it's called balut, and balut is a partly developed egg that had been
Oh, dear.
fertilized, and there was
That sounds a little
and
bit
there was a
scary.
little
You ate that. Uh-oh.
and I went through with it. I went through with it, keeping true to my heritage.
Excellent.
It was not the best surprise that I've had in my life.
Thank you so much. Tony.
But just a little known, I don't know the terminology, but the little white stringy fiber filament that you find, I didn't realize that suspends the yolk in the albumin, so it keeps everything intact.
Keeps it all together.
Yeah.
That's excellent. So we have a lot of egg knowledge just within this group. And there's so many different levels of knowledge too, because you cook with these all the time. Sometimes you might not completely know the science behind it, but you get the intuition of it as you work with the eggs. This is an old-time egg beater. I've had this for years. I really do use this. It's fantastic. It breaks the egg proteins apart just right. Yeah, I will demonstrate. There you go. It does work. So everybody has a lot of egg knowledge on different levels, and this is something that I hope that this will elevate your knowledge. One of the things that's important to note is that there's a difference between, there's the science of the egg and cooking with the egg, and then there's the actual practice of making it work. And I had a plan that was so beautiful to create this great carrot cake and follow this whole science of cooking with the egg. And I did that this morning and brought that in. And this is proof that cooking eggs is art and science, because it should have been about 2 inches tall. So you mix that science and art, and you don't want to forget all of that. It's all part of the incredible egg. Thank you so much.
Isn't he fabulous? Let's hear it for the Toastmaster. Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests, and especially the felicitous Monique. Whoa. She's delivering a advanced speaking manual. We'll do this Trump style. Sorry, Arnie. Enhancing a technical talk with the internet. She did indeed use the internet to bring us into her speech. This also asks, the first thing with the internet, it asks that she email before her speech us, and she certainly did that. And I thoroughly enjoyed the felicitous email directive to review her 2012 icebreaker as a clever 7-minute extra preview of today's speech. So I did watch that, and that's something as Toastmasters we should all do, is to look back at the other speakers and see how they've improved, or steal from them directly, because some of them aren't here anymore, so just a hint. I had a little bit of issue, because this is a more advanced speech, that the title could have brought me into a clarity on the message. Just the egg left me going, okay. Then she's talking about science, which was wonderful. And then she's talking about what I thought were her 3 main points, which were heating, mixing, and beating, which are science and the kitchen. And then we had the cake as well, which you apologized for, which we should not do as Toastmasters in our speaking or in our baking. The cake issue could have been told scientifically. We would have just thought that was on purpose. That's why I'm evaluating here. You gave us just enough slides, fun and science cleverly combined. The chicken, the sick one, if you did indeed read or look back at her video, you could see the splinting of her other, so again, that 7 minutes that you missed, you should look at. She splinted another chicken's leg. It's wonderful. She's an engaging speaker. again, the only thing that I would hit is the idea that don't apologize. Realia, the props were wonderful and fun. Please think of doing that yourself. There wasn't too much. It was just right. It was a fun speech, and you were an engaging speaker. That was really slicker than sliding on egg whites. An exciting talk. Thank you very much.